All right, I'd like to welcome you to this edition of In the Conference Room with Mark S. Lee. I hope you're sitting back and relaxing and enjoying the warm days of summer. Yes, we've been waiting for a long time to say that. I don't know about you. Give me the heat. Give me the heat. I'm just enjoying every moment being here in Metro Detroit. We obviously have some challenging days as it gets cooler. So this time of the year, I'm going to enjoy as much as possible. I want you to sit back and enjoy the conversation as we do each and every single week. And as you know, this is your source of information where we talk to business leaders from across the great city of Detroit, the state of Michigan, and beyond, and just try to address issues and business challenges that may be of interest to you. So this week is no different. You recognize her face, you'll recognize her name, and you'll recognize her voice from a former colleague of mine on radio as well. We're not going to mention the call letters, so free advertising, but she came on after me on weekends on this great station that we had in the Motor City. Angela T. Moore, thanks for joining me in the conference room like the old days, huh?
Thank you so much, Mark S. Lee. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
My pleasure. And before we get started, explain to people your company and your role, exactly what you're focused on as a business.
Okay, yeah. So my organization, the Body Principle, provides mental health counseling and integrative health coaching to companies, organizations, and school systems. And so over the past 3 years, we have focused primarily on being a support, system to principals, assistant principals, coordinators, directors, administrators, those people that are underneath the superintendent. And then we have extended our services to students as well. This past year, we did a youth empowerment program where I specifically work with sixth grade girls and fourth and fifth grade boys and girls.
Good. And so what I want to do today is really kind of unpack uh, just from a here we are in summer, the challenges that we're going to be seeing. You doing this every day. And we know the last several months have been very hectic from a business standpoint and beyond. We just keep the conversation there, but it's been very hectic for a lot of people. And here we are segueing now. We're going to be moving into July, which is hard to believe. And so a lot of times people will take this summer, hopefully, in theory, to pause, to slow down. And you and I had a conversation recently, and we were talking about me and then how I talked about how the last academic years, you all know I'm also an adjunct professor at three different universities. And I talked about how hectic it was. And we kind of segued into a nice conversation of what does it take to slow down? So all that to say is, let's kind of start there. Let's talk about what you're seeing in the marketplace. Here we are in the summertime. What do you are people? What are your concerns this summer as people continue to go through the summer months?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say slow down because I feel like we often associate uh, movement with productivity.
Yeah.
And when we don't move, we don't think that we're being as productive. And something that I always say, and it's actually scripturally, there is strength in standing still and recognizing whether it's in the summer or any part of the year, that it's important to stop and pause to create time and space to release, anything that is stress to you, to also reflect about the things that you've been doing and I want to, pause there when I talk about reflect because I often like to, I would say, suggest to my clients that they actually kind of do an audit, looking back and doing an assessment of what you've been doing, what's been working for you, and what has not been working. And for those things that have been working for you, how can you continue it and be effective and productive within those things? And those things that are counter to your productivity or that are stress producing behaviors, how can you eliminate those things? And sometimes the summer, because it's a time when things slow down, it's a perfect time to do that. So it's a perfect time to say, okay, I'm going to, let go of those things that are not productive, that are detrimental even to my, my mental and physical health. Because something that we don't recognize oftentimes is when we're stressed, we don't recognize the physiological um, impact that has, on your body as well as the physical impact. And so, you'll have a lot of times where people will they'll I've heard this so many times, Mark, it's so funny. They say, it seems like when I slow down, I get sick.
Mm,
And which is really interesting. And I think, and it's funny that, I would love to say that I know I'm not a medical professional. I would love to say that I know like why that happens, but I sometimes think that it's not that you get sick as much as that you were probably sick or kind of
yeah,
going into like a low state of illness. And then once your body
yeah.
stopped, then everything that was kind of you were keeping at bay by moving and kind of ignoring it becomes more apparent.
It's funny that you say that because as we're speaking now, uh,
Mhm.
you can probably hear a little bit of congestion in my voice. I'm fine. It's just the allergy season, but it seemed to became more pronounced. To your point, when I slowed down, because I'm constantly on the go. You're constantly on the go, and let's talk about that. Here we are as as we are in this supposedly theoretical pause period. What are
Yeah.
some of the things that people should be looking for when it comes to those stressors? What are some of the things that we should be focused on to help us to slow down outside of the technology, and all the other things that we have our fingers in? What are some of the things that you are looking for that will help people to address and slow down moving forward?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned technology because we are almost, I think, addicted to our devices, and we almost
Mhm.
have formed a habit and a routine of constantly checking those devices and constantly being plugged in. And so, one thing that I would definitely suggest is to pay attention to if you are still looking at your devices when you don't have to. Have you gotten into the habit of checking emails and text messages and constantly on your phone or on your computer? And maybe you're not getting as many emails and you're not getting as many text messages, so you can decrease that time that you're actually doing it. I actually recommend to clients that they set aside specific times to do three things. And I want to make sure I expand on this. So I
Yeah.
suggest to my clients that you schedule in when you respond to emails, when you respond to text messages and phone calls. And you'll notice that I put it in very specific order. The reason that emails are very interesting is because oftentimes when you send an email, the person is pretty unlikely to look at that email immediately. And so you're not going to have stress about having to wait for a response and then respond to that email. Text messages can be a little tricky because you may send a text and the person may actually have their phone physically, on them, and they may respond to your text message immediately, and you may feel stressed to respond. You may feel pressure to respond. And so I suggest to my clients, think about and when you send those text messages, if the person's going to immediately be respond, are you, do you have time and space to actually respond to those text messages? Phone calls, I say wait till I actually suggest to clients that they do those maybe at the end of the day or at a time where if a call goes a lot longer than you would hope for, that it's not going to be an issue for you. Because sometimes, as we know, and Mark, we've talked on the phone, and I've said, I'm not going to be one of those people that keeps talking once you say you got to
Absolutely.
go.
Absolutely. That drives me nuts, by the way.
Yeah, and a lot of people feel bad to just say, you know what, I really got to end this call and I really have to go. But you won't have to do that if you don't feel the stress and the pressure of having to
Mm.
shorten the phone call because maybe you made a phone call at a time where you really didn't have time.
Those are
And
truly
so,
outstanding tips. That's awesome. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah, and I would say just being mindful of those things, and if you're working from home, something that I've definitely recognized is pay attention to when you have like the television on. If you are watching the news and it's causing
Mm.
stress and it's causing you to put yourself in a stressful state that you don't need to be. Yes, we do need to watch the news and know what's going on, but put a time limit on that and be very intentional about how you spend your day and what you're listening and watching because chances are in the summer, depending on what type of career you have, or if you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, you may have a little bit more control over your time. Make sure you're using your time wisely.
Those are great pieces of advice. I'm proud to say I think I follow most of those. Uh,
Mm.
One thing that I saw a statistic years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I can't cite the source. I apologize. So this is from my perspective,
Yeah.
paraphrase, that people respond when you send the text messages, 80 to 90% of text messages are actually opened within 10 minutes after they're received. So in other words, if I send you a text message, theory based, you're going to open up your text message within 10 minutes. And so, therefore, the people who open up the text message feel like they do have to have a need to respond in some cases. So, it does, to your point, increase that anxiety level. And then, me as a sender, if I send a text message, hey, well, how come they haven't responded in 10 minutes? How come they haven't responded in 5 minutes? What happens? Your stress level continues to go up, and you're like, what's going on? What's going on? And then somebody will finally respond. And you say, well, I sent you that message 15 minutes ago. And they say, well, wait a minute, I got other things. I have other commitments as well. I mean, my point is humorous, but with that back and forth that goes on, that also is a stressor. So it reinforces what you said earlier as well.
Yeah, yeah, and I actually will intentionally, and I recommend this to my clients, setting your phone at a place where you don't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, at specific times. I jokingly said to, one client, I said, and she laughed. I said, you're not as important as you think.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's exactly
And nor
right.
am I, nor am I. It's like we do not have to be, available at all times. And especially if you get to slow down, don't put that stress on yourself to have to
Yeah.
respond to people. Just because you are more available doesn't mean that you need to make yourself more available either.
That's awesome. Other parts of what you talked about, I have gotten in the habit, particularly at night, of putting my phone in the other room. I put it away from me totally. Additionally, I'm just going through everything you said. I work from home most of the times. I do have mobile offices, but most of the times you can see I'm working from my home office as well. I never turn the TV on. I try
Mhm.
to I distinguish. I have a separate area, in this case, my office, and the rest of my house is completely separate. So from the time that I'm working, I don't go turn the TV on. I focus on all my time in this office here, and I may turn some music on, some low music, and I'm a big jazz fan, as you know, a true
Yeah.
jazz fan. Oh yeah, so I may have some music going in the background. And then the other thing, to your point, I love what you just said in terms of the news. I have to know what's going on because of what I do, and I contribute to
Right.
various outlets and things like that. But I've made a boundary for myself there. And I've been only watch it for a few moments or whatever that time designation might be. But then I love this, Angela. I have learned to shut it down. And I have learned to shift over to like even funny programs at night just to distract myself and get away from the day-to-day noise that we're hearing on an ongoing basis. So I think you provide some outstanding advice. Talk about the mental challenges. So these stressors that we just talked about, from a mental perspective, how can that affect our overall behavior, our mental thought process, as well as our mental behavior?
Yeah, well, the one thing about is when you're stressed, we tend to, something I say to all my clients is that whatever is happening in one area of life tends to bleed into other areas. And
Mhm.
so if you're extremely stressed during the workday, chances are you're going to be stressed when you're with your loved ones later in the day. And so being very mindful of how stressed you are, and I would also suggest understand that you have the power to insert peace into your day
Mhm.
so that when you enter your home or when your loved ones return home, maybe they've been out and about, or when you are setting up intentional, or creating intentional experiences with your loved ones, the best version of you shows up. And so, being really mindful of, how stressed am I during the day? What am I doing throughout the day that allows me to, I would say, feel one successful in what it is I'm trying to achieve in that day? Because think about how many times you've had a horrible day. You felt like, wow, I didn't really get anything done. I didn't really feel like I was very productive.
Yeah. Yeah.
I felt stressed and overwhelmed. You're not going to feel very successful, when you walk into the door. When you feel like you've had a successful day, you were kind to people, you were courteous, you were diligent about the things that you were trying to complete, you were able to complete the things that you had on your to-do list or your task list. or, whatever you call your list, you feel good about that. And you're going to bring that energy into your home, whether you're with somebody or even single. And when you're single, being very intentional about what you do when you're in your home space. Something that I mention all the time is every area of your house needs to be clearly defined what it is. So your bedroom needs to be your bedroom where you rest. It's your sanctuary. When you're in the bathroom, are you on your phone when you're in the bathroom? Are you doing multiple things? Are you listening to the news when you're brushing your teeth or when you're flossing or whatever it is that you're doing? When you're in the kitchen, do you have your computer? Are you looking on the phone when you're cooking? And you'd be surprised like how many times we let stress that it's building in these different areas of our life, and then we bring that into our personal space if we're there alone, or we bring it into the space when we're with our loved ones. And it's just like when you leave the door, when you go out the room and the door, like leave whatever's in that room. Is something that I highly recommend. And what you'll find is you'll have control over your mental state. And it's so funny when we think about mindset. I talk about mindset all the time, and I always say, create a positive mindset in the morning, but you have control to set your mind. And that's something that you need to do very intentionally in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, and before you go to sleep at night.
Just joining us, we're talking to Angela T. Moore, and we're talking about resetting. It's summertime. And what do you do? How do you reset? How do you pause? And we know that we're going 24/7. It seems 365 days a year. And this is the time of year. Graduations are behind you. People get a chance, hopefully, to get that summer vacation in. But the point of this conversation really is to share with you some ideas of just resetting, just slowing down. Everything's going to be there tomorrow. So as we begin to segue and kind of begin to wrap up, here we are resetting. What tips would you give? I mean, you've already given tips on, from moving the phones to other rooms to what maybe intake of the news, whatever the case might be. But if people are thinking, now that we got them thinking about resetting, pausing, what tips will you give to those people? Where do they start this out? I do want to reset for June, July, August, September, and get myself in proper mental state going into the fall. Although I don't want to use that word fall yet.
I know, don't say it, don't say it, don't say that
Okay.
word. I would say this is a perfect time to well, start your mornings off in a good way. If you don't have a morning routine, establish one.
Okay.
And establish one that's going to get you off in a good way. When your morning routine needs to be something that stabilizes you, centers you, and strengthens you. And so whatever that needs to be for me, it's my Bible reading, it's my devotional, it's my private time with God. I also like to eat a very healthy meal. It sets the tone for the rest of the day. Throughout the day, be very intentional about how you spend your time. Something that we aren't very conscious of is how much time passes by when we're kind of aimlessly walking around doing something that's not relaxing but stressing,
Yeah.
doing a little bit of clothes. Maybe we're cleaning up this. Maybe we're, doing different things around the house. Whereas if you were just to stay focused and say, okay, I'm going to, clean this, I'm going to wash this, you're going to be able to take care of all those things. And then you may have some time to go to the park, walk around, maybe invite a friend out to lunch. If you have kids that have recently moved out the house and they're still in the same state, or same city even, the same city more so, not state, but,
Right.
maybe, schedule a time to, meet with them. And if they're in a different state, since I said it, do
Right.
a Zoom, and connect, with your child that maybe, away, at summer, for summer, classes, like on a summer, during summer,
Awesome.
um, on a summer, for summer campus, on a summer campus. Um, I would say, okay, let me say something else. Oh, I got something good. Also, it's a perfect time. You talked about vacation, Mark. I got to talk about vacations. Making sure that when you're scheduling vacations, that it's not stressful. So create time to really do some research. Make sure you select some good places to go. Make sure that if you don't have someone to provide you assistance and you need assistance, talk to people about places that they've gone, that they've had really good experiences. Don't let creating a vacation be stressful, and make sure if you do a vacation, I would say also create time when you get back so that you don't have to immediately start to have to do things. And so be mindful of scheduling time that when you get back, you get to relax. I've had so many people tell me that they feel stressed,
Yeah.
from your vacation because they've had to get
Yeah.
back and kind of get right into things. And so I would say that at night, I would say do something that anchors you. So in the day, you're stabilizing, centering, and doing something that strengthens you. At night, doing something that anchors you. So what is your night routine? What can you do at night that puts yourself in a really good headspace? Don't watch anything that's going to be very upsetting. Don't argue with anybody or get in a fight if you can avoid it. And do something that puts you in a relaxed state. If that's reading or just sitting quietly in your room, whatever. Make sure you take time for that.
That is awesome. As we wrap up, I think that's a nice way to end this week's conference show. Excellent tips. I think the bottom line is slow down, take some time for yourself, focus on
Yeah.
your family, focus on your friends, and I just love the visual of just slowing down and taking a deep breath. Right. I learned that from you. I learned that from Angela Tibor. Angela Tibor, before we go, how can people get in touch with you, your website, anything else you want to share?
Yeah, so my personal brand website is empoweredbyangela.com. All my social channels are that Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can find me that way. So empoweredbyangela.com
Well,
or
Angela
empowered by.
Tibor, I want to thank you so much for joining me in the conference room this week. And awesome conversation. Awesome. I just enjoy talking to you every single time because you emit such positivity, a positive
Thank
vibe, and even me listening to you, I can feel that vibe, and I appreciate that. In all the conversations that we have, and I appreciate your friendship and also your support. So thank you very much.
thank you. It's an honor.
And everybody else, you go out, make it a great day, make it a great week. Enjoy the warm weather. We will check you out next time in the conference room with Mark Esley. And don't forget to subscribe when you're on this page. We'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.